Hello, my dear friends. You're on RFR News Channel, and today we will discuss the situation in Ukraine and Russia, let's say. Let's talk about strikes on pharmaceutical infrastructure. Russian forces have struck the warehouse of Optima Farm, one of Ukraine's two largest pharmaceutical distributors, for the third time, according to reports from Economic Truth. So this is third strike on the same company. The latest attack completely destroyed the warehouse located in Dnipro, which served the southern regions of Ukraine. So this warehouse was very important for medical supplies in southern Ukraine. The thing is that previously, Optima Farm's central warehouse and office complex in Kiev were hit twice in late August and again on October 25, causing estimated losses of around $100 million and destroying roughly 20% of Ukraine's monthly medicine stock stored there. So we're talking about very significant losses. Despite these repeated strikes, staff were unharmed, but the attacks severely disrupted supply chains for essential medicines, including antibiotics, insulin, oncology drugs, and emergency care supplies. So this is affecting critical medical supplies. This ongoing campaign targeting pharmaceutical logistics centers is viewed as part of Russia's broader strategy to cripple civilian infrastructure and public health resilience in Ukraine, with significant consequences for the availability of critical medical supplies across multiple regions. So Russians are systematically targeting pharmaceutical infrastructure, which is a very serious problem for Ukrainian healthcare system, something like this. And we have additional details about the overnight strikes on enemy targets. So let me give you breakdown by region. In the Odessa region, energy facilities in Starokazache were hit, causing reported power outages. So we see strikes on energy infrastructure. In the Kharkiv region, strikes targeted gas infrastructure, with a specific hit causing a fire at a gas compressor station in Lymanovka. Drones also attacked targets in Chuhuev, so multiple targets in Kharkiv region. In the Sumy region, Jiran missiles struck targets on the outskirts of Sumy, along with a missile strike reported on targets in the Sumy district, so Sumy region was also targeted. In the Dnipropetrovsk region, drones attacked targets in Sinelnikove and Pavlohrad, so we see attacks on multiple regions simultaneously. Now let's discuss Russian advances on multiple fronts. Russian forces have advanced in several locations recently, including in the Pokrovsk area of the Donetsk region, near Zlahoda, or Pershotravnevy in the Dnipropetrovsk region, Zeleny High in the Zaporizhia region, and Petropavlivka in the Kharkiv region. So we see advances on multiple directions simultaneously. These advances are part of ongoing operations with Russian troops pushing forward on multiple fronts and attempting to secure strategically important settlements and logistical hubs. So this is coordinated offensive on multiple directions, something like this. In Pokrovsk, fighting has been intense, with Russian forces gradually infiltrating and consolidating positions within and around the city, which is key to further moves north toward other major urban centers like Kramatorsk and Slovyansk. So Pokrovsk is very important for further Russian advance. Near Zlagoda, or Pershotravnev, Russian units continue pressure to expand control in the Dnipropetrovsk region. Similarly, in Zaporizhia's Zeleny Gay and Kharkiv's Petropavlivka, Russian troops have launched assaults with varying degrees of progress reported, so we see pressure on multiple directions, which makes it difficult for Ukrainian forces to concentrate reserves in one place. Now let's talk about very tragic and at the same time heroic story from the front line. 13-year-old Lyuba was left alone in the town of Rodinsky, which is under pressure from Russian troops, so this is very sad story about child in war zone. Her house was destroyed and her parents have disappeared. The girl hid in the basement with her neighbors, so she was left alone in dangerous area. For several days, Lyuba and her neighbors, including an elderly man, took shelter in the basement after the house collapsed on her during shelling, causing minor injuries. The thing is that two Ukrainian volunteers walked over 11 kilometers on foot under constant drone attacks and dangerous conditions to rescue Lyuba, her pregnant dog, and an elderly neighbor from the frontline town. So this is very heroic action from volunteers. The volunteers faced extreme risks, crossing fields and areas under fire to bring them to safety. This rescue illustrates the perils civilians face in frontline towns under Russian pressure and the extraordinary efforts by volunteers to save lives, especially those of vulnerable children. So we see that civilians are suffering in this conflict, especially children. Now, let's discuss Ukrainian strike on Russian territory. The Lukoil oil refinery in Volgograd was struck by Ukrainian drone attacks on November 5 to 6, 2025, causing significant damage and forcing a temporary halt to refinery operations, so this is very significant strike on Russian energy infrastructure. The attacks ignited fires in key refinery units, including the primary crude distillation unit, AVT5, and the hydrocracker, which handles substantial portions of the plant's processing capacity, about 20% and 11,000 tons per day respectively. So we're talking about significant damage to processing capacity. The thing is, that this refinery processes approximately 13.7 million tons of oil annually, representing around 5% of Russia's total refining output. So this is not small refinery, this is like 5% of entire Russian refining capacity. The strikes resulted in at least one confirmed civilian fatality and multiple injuries due to falling debris, so there are civilian casualties. The incident also disrupted energy supplies locally and caused broader regional power outages, so impact is not just on refinery, but also on local energy supply. And the final update for today is from Pokrovsk direction. Russian military reports indicate that in the Pokrov direction, adverse weather conditions, specifically thick fog, are causing confusion during combat operations. So fog is creating problems, not just opportunities. The thing is that this leads to instances where Russian forces mistake their own troops for Ukrainian reconnaissance and sabotage groups and mistakenly fire upon themselves, so we see friendly fire incidents from Russian side. Such friendly fire incidents are reportedly due to limited visibility and difficulties in frontline identification under these environmental conditions. So fog that helps Russian advance is also creating problems with identification of targets. Something like this. This is very interesting update because it shows us that fog is not just advantage, it's also creating problems for Russian forces. So everything has two sides, let's say.